Good morning, children. We are going to begin with chapter 4 today, that is types of economies. And before we come to the elaboration of this types of economies, just let's discuss about the word economy. And the economy is a word which talks about a broad institutional framework, right? It's an institutional framework within which economic interaction is obviously related to sale and purchase. Economic interaction takes place in a country, right? This is what you mean by an economy. Now we can also say that in economy there is a cooperation of producers with the consumers to satisfy the wants of the consumers, as well as it's a system of mutual exchange, right? So this is what you mean by an economy. So now we are going to study the various types of economies. Now broad categorization of economies is basically two categories are there. One category is on the basis of the stage of development. The second broad category is on the basis of the nature of the economic system the countries they opt for. So we have broadly two categories, two types of economies. One is the economy which is divided on the basis of the stages of development, and the second types of economies are the economies which are classified on the basis of the economic system they use to opt for. So the first category is on the basis of stages of development, and here we have two types of economies again. One is developed economy and the second is the developing economies. And then second is on the basis of the nature of economic system, we have capitalism, socialism and mixed economy, right? UN also has classified these economies, and according to UN classification of developed and underdeveloped countries, it is on the basis of per capita income. So we can say that a developed country is the one which has a high real per capita income. Just to mention you again, the meaning of high real per capita income means the purchasing power of the people of such country is very high, right? So when the purchasing power of the people of such country is high, there are certain more features you can attach to this, that is the standard of the living of people is also better than the other people, and they have the better availability of everything in countries those who are known as developed countries. Now the countries which fall into the category of developed countries, you can name them: USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, West European countries. These are all countries which fall under the category of developed countries. On the other hand, are underdeveloped or developing country, they are the same word, that is the underdeveloped or developing countries. They are defined as a country in which real per capita income is low, right, and which has the potentiality of development. So we are seeing the opposite of developed over here, because in a developed economy the high real per capita income is there, but in a developing economy the real per capita income is low, but they have the potential, they have the caliber to grow more, right? Now this general definition of developing or underdeveloped economy emphasizes two major elements. First element is that in developing economy is defined in terms of low per capita income, right? Now low per capita income is taken in the relative sense over here. What do you mean by that? That it is low in relation to the developed countries, right? Where they are relating the per capita income of such countries with the per capita income of those countries, those who have high real per capita income. Just the way we have given the names of certain countries, right? So it is relative phenomena. And then second element of this definition is that an underdeveloped country is one which has a potential of development. so as to increase its per capita real income. That is, they have the caliber to increase, to raise their standard of living by increasing their real per capita income, right? So these are the two things, two elements of such definitions. Now the terms developing, underdeveloped and poor economies, three terms we are saying: developing, underdeveloped and poor economies. They are used interchangeably, that is, they are synonym for each other. But the term developing signifies that though still underdeveloped, the economy is underdeveloped, the process of development has been started, initiated in these economies. Now, most of the countries of Asia, Africa and Latin America, they are underdeveloped or developing countries, that is, they have the caliber and so they have started the process of development over there. Then you have certain characteristics of developing economies or underdeveloped economies. The first characteristics, as obvious, is that they have low per capita income and it is much lower than that of the developed countries. Then they have existence of widespread poverty over there. Then large income inequalities are there in such countries. Predominance of agriculture, that is, these economies are agriculture based economies as a source of income and employment. Your country is the best example of such kind of economy. Then the rate of growth of population is very high in such economy. Deficiency of capital in terms of a small stock of capital and low rate of capital formation. Because of low saving, low income, it's a cycle. Because of low income, saving is low and low saving results in low capital formation. Then next is poor quality of human capital. Human capital is when the money investment is made in the form of education, health, then you term capital, then you term human beings at human capital. So the quality of human capital is very poor over here, such as low rate of literacy, low level of education, inadequate availability of health facilities like doctors and hospitals. That is, the infrastructural facilities are very poor. Then the use of traditional and less efficient techniques of production. We are more of a agriculture based economy, so the techniques of production that we are using in agriculture and also in industrial sector, those are the backward techniques, old or outdated techniques of production that affects the economic growth. Then high and rising level of unemployment and underemployment, right? Then low level of productivity is there. Then low level of living, that is, the standard of living is very low. The diets, they are inadequate for the people. Lack of safe drinking water, lack of sanitation, inadequate housing facilities, etc. These are all there. Then low quality of life, that is, what do you mean by quality of life? The low life expectancy. Now life expectancy means that how long a person is expected to live after he is born. Alright, that is whether the person will be living 50 years, 60. So this expectancy of life is decreasing year by year, right? This is what you mean by low quality of life. Then high infant mortality, that is, the childbirth rate death rate is very high over here. Then underdeveloped infrastructure in terms of shortage of transport, communication and power supply, lack of financial institutions like bank. All these infrastructure, they are underdeveloped. They are not developed as per the requirement of such a large economy. And then unfavorable social structure and value system. Now most of the underdeveloped economies have initiated economic development, right? And still these are the features of such an economy. Now the extent of poverty, unemployment and growth rate of population, they are being gradually reduced. They are not consistent, they are not constant, they are not growing, but they are reducing. Right, occupational structure is also shifting from agricultural activities to industrial and service activities. Then quality of techniques and quality of life have improved over the years. Infrastructural facilities are being expanded gradually. So what we can say, that the way we said that an underdeveloped economy is an economy where per capita real income is low, but they have the potential of development. So these features, the later features that we have talked about, they show that the potential used is changing the phenomena that was over the years. That is, we are growing in every area of life, that is the poverty, unemployment, population, all they are being reduced over the years. The occupational structure has also become not only agricultural based, but we are also becoming industrial base. We are shifting our occupational structure from agriculture to industry, and then there are infrastructure facilities are also being improved. So this may prove that yes, we are an underdeveloped economy, but at the same time we have the potential to develop. Then there are certain differences. The other part, on the other side, the reverse, vice versa is there. The way you said that a developing economy has low per capita income, on the other hand we can say that developed economies, they have high per capita income. The way developing economy has low standard of living, on the other hand the high standard of living is there in the developing economies. So these points are there in your book, you can go through them, you can see them. And then we come to types of economic system, right? These are the two types of economies. They are on the basis of the stages of development. Now we come to the types of economies on the basis of the nature of economic system, and we have already discussed that we have three types of economies on the basis of economic systems. The first is capitalistic economy. Before I come to this, an economic system is defined as a sum total of all those devices and institutions through which economic choices are made and scarce resources are used for the purpose of satisfying various human wants. So again we can say that an economic system is the set of devices and institutions with the help of which economic choices are made, right? And what happens, the scarce resources, they are used for the purpose of satisfying various human wants. This is what you mean by an economic system. Now the most important types of economic systems which are relevant today are three: capitalism or capitalistic economy, socialism or socialistic economy, and mixed economy or mixed economic system. The first and foremost is the capitalistic economy or capitalism. Now, a capitalistic economy is an economy in which productive resources, that is land, labor, right, all the factors of production, land, labor, capital, then entrepreneurship and organization, all the factors, these productive resources, they are owned by private individuals who use these resources to earn profit, and in which the state's intervention is minimum, so that economic activities are mostly unplanned and coordinated. I hope you get that a capitalistic system is the one where all the productive resources, they are owned by private individuals, where state intervention is very low, and so the activities are mostly unplanned and uncoordinated. Now there are certain features of this kind of economy. The first feature is private property. Now the fundamental feature of a capitalist economy is that productive forces, that is land, factories, mines, machinery, all the productive resources, they are owned by private individuals. Now private property, because these are the resources, private property means that individual owners of these productive resources, they have the right to acquire, to get, to possess, use and sell property and productive forces, right? They own them, they can purchase them, they possess them, and they can use these, they can sell these property or productive forces to someone else. However, ownership of private property is subject to various restrictions imposed by the government. So this right is not absolute, right? Then the second feature of this kind of capitalistic economy is right of inheritance. This comes from the very first feature, that is right of property. That's why we say that the right of inheritance is an essential corollary of private ownership. Corollary is something that results from something else. So I just said that right of inheritance comes from the right of property. When you have the right to property, so that you can sell, you can transfer your property to someone else, and when you transfer, the next person become the inheritor of your property. That is what you mean by right of inheritance, and that is what you mean by corollary, the essential corollary of private ownership. Now, the right of inheritance means that the property owned by an individual can be legally passed on to his legal heirs like sons and daughters. This entire thing provides a powerful intense incentive to the people to save and accumulate wealth, because they know that their money that they have saved and the wealth that they have accumulated will be legally transferred to their legal heirs, their sons and daughters, right? Then third feature of such a economy is freedom of enterprise and occupation. Now, enterprise means it is a motivation to set up and succeed in business. So here the freedom of enterprise and occupation is there. That is, you are free to set up your own industry. You can have your own setup, and you can choose your occupation also. How? The freedom of enterprise means that the private enterprises are free to use productive resources for the production of a product of their own choice. They are free to choose the product which they wanted to produce, right? Freedom of occupation implies that individuals are free to choose an occupation of their choice according to their education, talent, ability and efficiency. They can move from one job to another or from one place to another in search of better opportunities, right? The next feature of capitalism is freedom of choice for consumers, right? The previous freedom was for the producers. The next freedom is to consumers also. The consumers are free. They are free to buy and consume goods and services of their choice, right? It is the choices and preferences of the consumers that decide the nature and quantity of goods which are produced in the economy. This all we have discussed in what to produce, how to produce and for whom to produce. It is for this reason that the consumer is supposed to be a sovereign or a king in a capitalistic economy, because he is free to pick the good he wanted to choose. Then price mechanism. This is the most important feature or most important characteristic of a capitalistic economy. Price mechanism or market mechanism, we can use these synonyms as interchangeably. It is an essential feature of capitalism. Now, price mechanism, just try to understand, is it is a process, it is a method, it is a process through which prices of goods and services are decided or determined by the market forces. And what are the market forces? Demand and supply. So it is a method through which the prices of goods and services are determined in the market with the help of market demand and market supply. I hope you understand the difference between individual demand and market demand, and individual supply and market supply. Not individually, but taken up together, the demand of the entire market and the supply of the entire supplying group. In a capitalistic economy, every commodity has a price tag attached to it, right? So prices, this is what we are talking about, the determination of price in such a market. Now, prices, they indicate consumers' choice and preference, right? For whatever commodity we are giving a price, that shows that we are preferring that commodity, we are choosing that commodity over and above the other commodity, right? So price mechanism is fundamental to the operation of the capitalistic economy. It is the price mechanism which determines how the available productive resources are used for the production of different types of goods and services. So, price mechanism plays an important role in organizing production, and in the same way, price mechanism plays a major role in the distribution of goods among different individuals. So, on the part of producers also and all the part of consumers. The price mechanism is a key process or key mechanism that works in a capitalistic economy. Now, this price mechanism is the basic coordinating mechanism in a capitalistic economy. Economic activities are coordinated largely through price mechanism. That is why Adam Smith regarded this price mechanism as an invisible hand, that is something which cannot be seen but which is working over there. The next feature is that competition. In a capitalistic economy, there exists a high degree of competition both in the product market and in the factor market. We know the product market where goods and services are sold and purchased, and the factor market where factor services are sold and purchased, right? In the product market, producers compete with each other in order to sell goods and services, and in the factor market, the resource owners, they compete with each other in order to sell their factor services, right? Now, competition tends to promote economic efficiency. How? When you know that you have a rival, you'll always work and try to prove yourself better, right? So competition, it tends to promote economic efficiency. It ensures that goods and services are produced at the lowest possible cost of production, because the cost of production will ultimately decide your profit margin as a producer, right? Similarly, competition in the factor market also, such as labor market, ensures that the factor services like labor give their best performance, otherwise they would be competed out from the market. Now, the next feature is profit motive. In the previous point, we talked about that competition, that is the minimum cost, they are trying to have their minimum cost of production because this is going to affect their profit margin. Now, maximization of profits is the sole motive of producers. Why? Because it motivates the producers to undertake production. Allocation of resources is determined by the profit motive. That is, producers would produce more of those goods in the production of which they are able to earn more profit. So, profit is the main motive of a capitalistic economy. Then self-interest is there. Each individual in a capitalist economy is guided by self-interest. That is, the producer aims at maximization of profit. Similarly, a laborer who will try to get the highest wages for his labor services. Now, self-interest is the most important motivating force in such an economy. That is, it works as an invisible hand in coordinating the activities of millions of individuals. And then last feature of capitalist economy is minimum government interference. This is what you said, that there is the least interference by the government in economic activities and in the working of market forces. Consumers and producers are by and large free to take their independent decisions. So, a capitalist economy is a laissez-faire economy. These are all features of a capitalistic economy. Now we come to merits of capitalism, right? The first merit, that is the good points of capitalism. The first merit of capitalism is that it infuses a spirit of enterprise. Just I said earlier also, thus enterprise means, the spirit of enterprise means it is a motivation. It gives a motivation to the business class to set up and succeed in business. How it happens? The force of profit, that is the profit motive, this has infused the spirit of enterprise, that is the spirit to succeed and to start a new business, right? And the risk taking in the individuals, the profit that motivates the individuals to continue in the business, to start a new business, to take the risk in the business. The desire to earn profits has encouraged new entrepreneurial abilities also. Not only the existing ones, they are continuing, such as the legal heirs, that is, the after father, the son is continuing with the business, but also new entrepreneurial abilities are coming up because of the profit motive. Producers are motivated to bring improvement in production activities in order to earn profits and compete with other producers, because the competition is there. So all of them, they try try to be better from their rivals, and this improves their efficiency also, and this motivates to the producers to bring improvement in their production activities. Then second merit of such kind of economy is that it is an incentive for technological, it gives an incentive for technological progress. Now when you say incentive, it means something that encourages someone to do something, that is, it can be in the form of money, it can be in the form of any facility. So the capitalistic economy, it gives incentive to the entrepreneurial ability for technological progress. That is, when you are progressing technologically wise, when you are progressing, improving yourself technologically, you are getting the incentive in return of it. How? The producers have been motivated to develop new techniques of production so as to survive in the face of competition. When large scale of competition is there, you have to survive by proving yourself better, and for that you will have to work harder and harder, and that only will earn you better profits. Competition has encouraged producers to invent new and improved techniques of production and new and improved products, because then only they can survive in the face of tough competition. The next is efficient use of resources. Now producers are under constant pressure to maximize efficiency of their resources and to keep the cost to minimum in order to earn high profits. As I already told you, that cost of production and profit are interrelated. If the cost of production is low, then the profit margins would be high. If the cost of production is high, then the profit margin will be low. So the producers, they are in constant pressure to reduce their cost of production in order to increase their profit margin. Similarly, the workers who are working, the laborers, they work most efficiently in order to earn higher income also, because the incentives are given over here. The next merit is incentive for capital formation. Capital formation, I told you, when the income is high, saving is high, the saving is rooted through the capital market to the business class, and they invest in the business firm, and that is what you mean by capital formation. Now what they say, that it is an incentive, this capitalist economy is an incentive for capital formation. The institution of private property, I told you the first and foremost point was private property, that is, the owners had the right to possess, to acquire and to transfer their property to the individuals. They can possess the property and the productive resources also. So the institution of private property and inheritance, that is, they can transfer their property to their legal heirs, it encourages saving and investment. Why you are encouraged? Because you know that whatever you are saving, whatever you are investing is going to be transferred to your own family members, and so you are encouraged to save and to invest. The higher level of saving and investment leads to higher income and the higher rate of economic growth. The next point is new consumer goods. The desire to earn profit, that is, because for everything you are getting profit, everything associated with your profit. So the desire for earning higher profit has motivated the producers to produce new variety of products. That is, if you have something different from other producers, from other sellers, definitely your sale would be high. You can charge a higher prices, right? So the incentive motive, that is the profit motive, encourages the producers to produce new goods and to use a new technology also. So the competition has also encouraged them to improve the quality of the old product as well. Then flexibility and adaptability. The capitalist economy possesses a high degree of flexibility, means it can change itself very quickly, and adaptability, it has adapted itself to changed conditions and environment. That is, it has successfully withstood, it has successfully stood various strains and pressures like political crisis, business cycles and technological changes. The capitalistic system, it has withstood all these changes by being firm in the system. it has shown its flexibility by adapting itself to large scale production, right? It has changed its level of production from small scale to large scale production, new techniques of production, and increased regulations by the government. All these are the new changes that are coming up, but the capitalist economy is standing firm in the coming changes, right? Then automatic working. The capitalist economic system operates in an automatic manner. I told you that there is no controlling or organizing agency over here. Price mechanism is the automatic working agency, working method, working process that is controlling the entire functioning. So there is no planning body and central agency to take necessary economic decisions. It is the impersonal forces of price mechanism which enables the capitalist economy to take all important decisions. That is, the decisions related to what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. Then next is economic freedom, the restrictions by the government. We have studied about the restrictions also. The restrictions by the government are kept to minimum over here. There is freedom to consumers and freedom to producers and freedom to save and invest. So freedom to enterprises constitutes the backbone of the capitalistic economic system. That is, everybody is free to do their own work, right? Thus economic freedom is the virtue, is the quality of capitalism. Then increase in production and standard of living. The consumers, the countries like USA, UK, Japan, etc., they have experienced a high rate of economic growth by adopting the capitalistic economic system. This had enabled these countries to raise their standard of living. Then expansion of international trade. The trade between countries this kind of economic system has advocated free trade between these countries. In view of this philosophy, international trade and global economic interactions have increased over the years. These are the merits of capitalistic economy. Now we come to demerits of capitalist economy. That is, there are two sides of every coin. So we have the way we have merits, we have demerits also of the capitalistic economy, the drawbacks. All right, the negative points that are there. The first negative is the inequalities of income and wealth. In this kind of economy, you can see the witnessing of affluence, that is prosperity, along with acute poverty, multi-storied buildings along with slums, and extravagant luxuries along with hunger. Now inequality is inherent in the capitalistic system because of the institution of private property. You understand that is, the property is transferred from one individual to the related individual, the other individual, right? So the property is transferred from one rich person to the other rich person, right? The right of inheritance and concentration of productive forces in the hands of a small minority. That is what is happening, that you are transferring. If you are a rich person, if you are a capitalistic person, you are transferring your resources, your property to your own family members. So the concentration of productive resources and the wealth is in the hands of few people. So the resultant is, in a capitalistic economy, the rich have become richer and the poor are becoming poorer. The second demerit of such an economy is class struggle. Now the capitalistic society has been divided into two groups. You can see that they are namely the capitalistic and the capitalist and the workers group, the haves and the have nots, the rich and the poor. So there is constant hostility, there is constant enmity or struggle between these two groups in the form of strikes and lockouts. The next is economic instability. Now capitalistic economic system is such a system which leads to economic instability that arises because there is no coordinating agency. There is always the possibility of overproduction or underproduction, booms and depressions, inflation and unemployment, because there is no controlling or organizing agency over theirs. Then misallocation of resources is there. In a capitalist economy, rich people have more purchasing power, therefore productive resources are used for the production of luxuries and comforts, right? Now because the rich people, they can afford, they can purchase the commodities, so the goods and those goods and services are produced which can be purchased by the higher strata of the society, so that the profit margins are very high. So the resources are diverted to the production of comforts and luxuries, and because this leads to more profits from the production of luxuries. Now the production of necessities is neglected over here. Now the such an allocation of resources is undesirable from the viewpoint of the society, right? Because the welfare of the society is neglected. Then there are waste of capitalistic production. The waste is in the form of few things. Some of the techniques of production, they are discarded because the new technique of production have come, and the producer would like to operate the new technique of production because of many reasons, because of cost of production, because of variety of goods and all, right? Then second is consumers. They also discard many consumer goods because the new goods, the new manufactured goods, the new style goods, the new fashion technology, new status symbol goods have come up into the market. This is all is the wastage of the resources and the goods. And then producers, they go in for excessive advertisement in order to push up sales, and this it leads to increase in cost of production, the burden of which falls on consumers obviously, right? And then plant capacity remains underutilized due to cutthroat competition. So these are the wastes of capitalistic production. Then there is emergence of monopoly power. Now capitalist economies at present, they are characterized by the domination of monopolists. Now because a few giant firms, a few big firms, they control production in most of the industries. Now monopolist firms are exploiting the consumers by charging very high prices and by restricting output in order to raise the price of the commodity. They are also responsible for maldistribution or long distribution of productive resources and concentration of economic and political power. Then neglect of social welfare. In a capitalist economy, production is undertaken to maximize private profit, mind you, not social welfare. Therefore the goals of maximization of social welfare is neglected over here. Then the domination of economic values, that is, capitalist economic system has given more emphasis on pecuniary values. What do you mean by pecuniary values? The values which are related to money and self-interest. Now earning money has become the main purpose of life, right? Even if it requires use of foul methods or wrong methods. This has resulted in subordination of human, social, moral, religious and cultural values. In fact, overemphasis on monetary values has led to numerous personal and family problems also, such as disruption, that is disturbances, disorders in and suicides and more worries in the families. Now there is the danger of man becoming an economic robot. So these are the demerits or shortcomings of a capitalistic economic system.